about running for state house, state senate, county commissioner, city council, judges, all of that. And since launching in 2017, we've identified more than 71,000 young people who want to run for office. We've endorsed over 1,450 all-star candidates in all 50 states. So far, Run for Something has elected almost 500 candidates to state and local office, ranging from state legislature all the way down to town and school boards. And Run for Something winners are majority women, over 55% people of color, and over 20% LGBTQ. We know that more young, diverse, and exciting progressives running strong grassroots campaigns in every community will increase immediate turnout for Democrats up and down the ballot, and in the long term, will build the Democratic bench in the party. So in short, we believe in running great candidates, running them locally, and running them everywhere. And specifically, when we're talking about Black candidates, we know that local office holders have the quickest and most direct impact on most of our everyday lives. And I think a lot of us see that in our communities from day to day. And with thousands of down ballot elected offices on the ballot each year, our candidates can make a huge difference here. And we've seen over the past few years, and specifically this year, that state legislatures and local offices have huge impacts on issues like racial justice, budgeting and funding decisions, police oversight, reproductive rights, voting access, gun reform, COVID-19 responses, and so on. And we also know that the people who are running for school board today are going to be the people running for US Senate and president and governor tomorrow. This year, we saw the first Black woman sworn in as Vice President of the United States. And I have to shout out that she ran for local office and won. That was the first thing that she ran for. And while she might be the first Black woman vice president, she definitely will not be the last. We are committed to building a bench of smart, young Black progressives who will not only make a difference in their community today, but will build a legacy that will open the door for millions of other Black candidates to run and win on every level of government. So we work to recruit diverse potential candidates into our pipeline and provide them with resources to help them figure out what they want to run for and when. This year actually every year we host National Run for Office Day, but some of you all might have just seen that earlier this year, where we sign up thousands of potential candidates who are interested in running for state or local office. We also work with local, state, and national partners to find potential candidates and support these candidates by helping them identify how to get on the ballot and what to do once they're on it. And one of the biggest things that we do is that we provide support to our candidates on every step of their journey by providing them one-on-one support to build out their campaign plans and strategies to win. So I'm one of the regional directors, and we specifically work one-on-one with our endorsed candidates and provide them support and consultation throughout your campaign. We also connect our candidates with other elected officials who have been previously endorsed by Run for Something, so you can have a real perspective from someone who has walked in your shoes. We also connect our candidates to specialized campaign mentors who have extensive political experience to help you troubleshoot through specific issues on your campaigns. Our endorsed candidates are literally our superstars, and we are happy to connect them with high-touch partnerships, amplify their stories in the press, and provide them with the support and capacity that they need to start and finish and win strong campaigns. So that's a little bit about what we do here at Run for Something. I'd love to go ahead and introduce the first partner that we'll have speaking on tonight's program. We have Camden Coleman, who is from the Collective PAC, and Camden serves as the state and local campaigns coordinator, and she'll tell you a little bit more about what they do to support Black candidates.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me tonight. Again, my name is Camden Coleman. I'm the state and local campaigns coordinator for the Collective PAC. You know, I'm here for the same reasons many of you are here for. I want to change the electoral landscape as well, right? But I do it in a different capacity. So working with the Collective PAC, they were founded in 2016 on the principle of building Black political power, right? Unapologetically so, on the state, local, and federal level. So similar to Run for Something and even higher heights, we endorse our candidates. We do provide some financial backing, but what I'm proud of is that outside of providing financial backing, essentially, when you get an endorsement from us, you're getting an entire team that's hands-on, dedicated, and committed to helping you get into that seat, right? That could be one-on-one meetings, that could be campaign trainings, because we are in the campaign training space. We help do individual candidate training as well, but that's also helping to connect you to other organizations like Higher Heights, like Run for Something. I mean, you need a lot of people to back you, right? Black candidates have to be viable, they have to be electable, and that's hard. That is incredibly hard because we don't have daddy's money funding our campaigns. We have to get our money from grassroots organizations, from our community. And if we can't get our money from them, we have to find it somewhere in order to get endorsements and to be that candidate on the ticket, right? So because we understand that it is incredibly hard to get some of these things, the Collective PAC exists to bridge that gap for you. So I know many of you are running for office. You may be thinking, am I viable? Am I electable? And I'm here to tell you yes, because if somebody's willing to donate to you, you are a viable candidate, right? If somebody's willing to vote for you, even, you are an electable candidate. You leave the rest to us. You do the hard work of getting your signatures, getting yourself on the ballot, and just putting yourself out there. But when we endorse you, we are essentially here to help you figure out the rest so that you are not alone. You're not figuring it out by yourself. I come from a state ledge background myself. I absolutely understand the importance of, state on down races. And then we've got additional people on our team who have expertise to help you in a range of ways. So support for us is really just getting in there with you. You are not alone. And I mean, you're brave enough to run for something. So we're going to stand with you and make sure that we kind of, are that backing for you. And like I said, we've just got your back. So at the end of the day, just know that, somebody's out there for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Camden. And of course, I just want to remind people that we'll have plenty of time to hear from all of our partners. Begin to ask your questions in the Q&A function if you have them as we go along with the program. But now I'm super excited to introduce our first candidate and elected official who will be speaking tonight. Christian Menifee was endorsed by Run for Something and the Collective PAC. Christian currently serves as the Harris County Attorney. And as Harris County Attorney, Christian is the chief civil lawyer for the largest county in Texas. He was elected in 2020, and at the age of 32, Christian became the first African-American and the youngest person to serve in this position. So before Christian got elected, he had spent countless hours doing pro bono work, including advising for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, advising immigrant families at the airport, and working with Texas Appleseed on expanding alternatives to involuntary commitment for the mentally ill. And now as an elected leader, Christian will take that passion for service and enforcing laws and protecting the rights of Harris County residents through impactful litigation and representing Harris County government entities. So Christian, thank you again so much for joining us tonight. And especially in light of everything that's going on in Texas, we really appreciate you taking time out of your elected duties to talk with us tonight.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Candace, and thank you so much, everybody, for coming here today. I'm Christian Menifee. I'm the Harris County Attorney. I simultaneously have all the screens up in the chat, and I'm seeing folks from throughout Texas. I think I saw Houstonian in there, Prince. That's incredibly awesome that people showed up today in such major numbers. So my position as Harris County Attorney is the Chief Civil Legal Officer for the county. So we represent Harris County. Anytime it gets sued, we provide legal advice to all of the various county employees and elected officials, and we have some legal authority to bring lawsuits on behalf of the county, which is where things get really interesting. That's where we see work for environmental justice, impact litigation, including some of the stuff that recently happened with the winter storm of last week and the malfeasance at the state that led to a blackout throughout most of the state for most of the week, and some other really important work. But I'm supposed to be talking mostly about my run. I announced for this race in about May or June 2019 because it was on the 2020 ballot, and I challenged a 12-year incumbent in the primary. challenging an incumbent in the primary is some tough stuff. In Harris County, I can't think of any time in recent history that a challenger to an incumbent in a countywide race was able to be successful. But we did it through a few things. One, we just had energy. The incumbent I ran against was an older gentleman, and he hadn't really run a campaign in the modern age. And as many of you, not only on this panel, but folks in the chat room who have political interests know, campaigns are just run differently today than they used to be run. So that was something that was incredibly important. Two, we got the support of a bunch of local and national organizations, especially those that supported minorities and progressives, including Run for Something, the Collective PAC, and a bunch of other organizations. And three, the way that we did those first two things was we talked about the issues that matter to people. You know, I was unapologetically progressive in my race. I was fighting for environmental justice, for criminal justice reform. I was talking about Black and brown neighborhoods. I was talking about my parents, both of whom were military service persons and coming from a working class family, and remembering the Christmases where the only gift under the tree was a $20 watch and a t-shirt. And so many people are experiencing those types of things now. I think that a lot of times young candidates, when we get in, we're trying to prove our viability, we're trying to prove our intelligence, and we get to talking about stuff that does not in any way connect with the lives that we lived and the people who want us to serve them. So we focus very much on a progressive campaign, even though we're smack dab in the middle of Texas. And we talked about the issues that were important, and we were thorough on our research, right? Whenever I took a position on an issue, it's because I had vetted both sides very thoroughly, and I went with the one that I thought to be the better issue, the better position, and where my heart was on it. So we stayed true to our messaging. We did all these things. And then lastly, because I know I'm not supposed to talk too much right now, oh my gosh, fundraising. One blessing I had was coming in as a young candidate, as a first-time candidate. I connected with a political consultant who had stopped doing work in Texas, so wasn't really connected to any incumbents or anything like that. And he really set me down and taught me the importance of things like call time, really going through my network, seeing who I could call to ask money for, learning how to effectively pitch so that I'm not just sounding like a used car salesman, but instead I'm using that time to get people actively engaged and buy into the process. And I hated call time. I mean, to me, that was the worst part of campaigning. But then when I really started to understand that there's no way you can go and fight for people if you don't win this race. And it ain't no way you about to win this race. All of us can't be AOC, right? There's no way you're about to win this race if you're not dollar for dollar. So I'm happy to talk during the question and answer period about any of the experiences that I had, but I just want to say I'm incredibly grateful to the organizations like Run for Something who helped put me in the position to help other people. Because at the end of the day, you know, the limelight's cool, running for office is cool, holding office is cool, but this is about service. And so you have my commitment that I will remain focused on that.
Thank you so much, Christian. And yeah, we definitely look forward to hearing more later. And I hope you all heard that. Fundraising, call time is imperative. Thank you for sharing that. So now we are going to hear from our second partner who is joining us on the call. We have Aisha Dew on from Higher Heights. Aisha is a political strategist who has worked to help secure wins for candidates in over 70 races throughout North Carolina. And as the political director for Higher Heights, Aisha develops and implements short and long-term strategies, as well as plans to recruit, train, and support Black women running for office. She also engages and organizes Higher Heights' rapidly growing membership on the national, state, and local levels. Thanks so much for joining us, Aisha.
Thank you for having me. So glad to be here. Just to let you know, I am really cool and I absolutely wear my sunglasses at night, but I actually had surgery on my eyes. So that's why I'm wearing sunglasses right now on this Zoom. Otherwise, I would not be. But just wanted to share that with you all. So yes, I am with Higher Heights, and I will give you a little bit of my almost candidate version of Story of Self, right? And so for context, the Story of Self is where you tell who you are, and then you tell like why you're here, and then you tell why you're running for office, right? So my version of that for Higher Heights is that I started my work doing arts administration. So I met then President Clinton and Angela Bassett, the actress, and Mother Teresa in the same summer when I was 18 and my grandmother was 81. And my grandmother was actually Catholic. I'm Presbyterian, but we met Mother Teresa together, and we were actually a part of a documentary because I was 18 and she was 81. And I was really inspired and invested in doing work for people. And so I thought that I could potentially go into public service, being an elected official. I was a part of this group called the Teen Health Connection. And so President Clinton was trying to actually pass healthcare that President Obama passed. And he came to visit the Teen Health Connection here in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I live. And he talked to us about, basically our experience with getting the healthcare that we needed on a graduated scale based on income, as well as all the services teenagers need. Because essentially teenagers oftentimes fall into this really small little world whereby you no longer can go to a pediatrician. And if you don't have a family doctor, then you don't have a doctor. So between the ages of 14 and 18, you may not have a doctor, right? That was my experience. So I told him that he needed to look out for the little people and that he needed to work for us and that he needed to work for teens, children, adults who didn't have health care. And he went around the circle after he left, or after our actual forum was over. And then he told me that I should run for office. The same summer, I went to the National Black Theater Festival here in Winston-Salem, and I ran into Angela Bassett, and I hung out with her until I couldn't anymore. So there was a vendor's market, and I hung out with her. And then when she met my mom, she was like, "Hey, are you Aisha's mom?" And I was just really happy because Angela Bassett remembered who I was. And the other experience that I had was Mother Teresa coming to visit Charlotte. And my grandmother and I went to go visit her. And so this was really important for me because as a child who had experienced theater, I wanted to be a civic leader, an elected official. I wanted to also work in the arts. And then I also wanted to potentially be a spiritual leader. So I decided to go work in the arts because I didn't want to fight. And so I worked in Connecticut at a settlement house, and we worked with children who were who basically needed support. And I worked with a spectrum, but worked with children who were 2 to 18. And our thing at Hall Neighborhood House was that we could get you from the time that you were newborn until you were going over to the other side, because we also had a senior center. And so essentially, I thought, well, I'm not going to have to fight. I'm going to be an artist, and I'm going to teach, and I'm going to be a teacher. And so there was this thing called welfare to work that President Clinton had actually come up with. And at the time, then President Bush had actually cut the vouchers for daycare and for grandparents who would be able to actually support children when mothers went to work. So my little artistic teaching office was right across from social services. And I saw so many mothers come in who wanted to put their children into daycare and couldn't. And they wanted to bring their children to our services and they couldn't. And so then I realized that essentially, if you believe in anything, you're going to have to fight. And that brought me back to the world of politics. And I started to volunteer for Obama. And I was the first African-American woman chair of the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party when we hosted the re-election campaign for President Obama. Some people said I was the youngest. I don't know. Sometimes we look good for our age. But that being said, I got back into the fight of the political realm, and then I ended up here at Higher Heights through various reasons, the political home for Black women. And so I truly feel like I'm home in a time frame where we have an opportunity to support Black women up and down the ballot. We specifically endorse Black women who are running for mayors of the top 100 cities, and also those who are running for federal office, for U.S. Congress, and for U.S. Senate. We also support those who are running for statewide executive, specifically for governor and lieutenant governor. So we are here to support Black women, and not just support Black women who are running for office, but support Black women. So as the political home for Black women, we are not just here to say like, let's support these specific candidates, but specifically through our programs like Black Women Vote, and through our training program, we are here to train, support, and cultivate Black women for leadership. So we want to make sure that Black women are educated when they go to the polls. We want to make sure that Black women have information about the candidates who support Black women. So at the end of the day, Black women have done a phenomenal job of saving everyone else by trying to save themselves and their families. But we also want to be sure that in that process, we support Black women to then become the next Kamala Harris. We want to be sure that we support Black women who we supported in 2018 and we supported again, who happened to be a teacher, who happened to be a nurse, who happened to be the mother of a slain boy, and make sure that they are the ones who get to tell their stories. And as one of those endorsed candidates says, Ayanna Presley, we want to support the people who are closest to the pain so that they can help to then create the policy. But let me just be clear, even though we only support a certain level of office, I can say that for me and for Glenda Carr, our co-founder, and for Kimberly Pillar Allen, who's another co-founder, that we want to be here and be the one-stop shop for Black women. And then we want to refer you to Run for Something and to Collective PAC and to our other amazing partners so that we can rally around Black women and make sure that they are going to actually be successful. And I'm sure that I'm going over time, but I'll say this one last thing, and that is that we want to support our Black women organizers and leaders. We want to see more than our board member be Black media consultants. We want to see more than, and I'm sorry, she's one Black woman who on the national level who's a media consultant. We want to see Black women in the digital space. We want to see Black women who are actually working on campaigns be successful. So that also meant for us that we supported New Georgia Project, which was founded by one of our former candidates, perhaps soon to be again another candidate of ours, Stacey Abrams, and NCA. So we supported them and their support of a critical election that was obviously taking place in Georgia during the runoff. So we don't want to just support Black women as candidates. We want to support Black women as organizers, leaders, and supporters of our democracy.
Thank you so much, Aisha. So now we are moving on to our second candidate who will be speaking, also named Aisha, but Aisha Wilson, spelled just a little bit differently. Aisha is running for re-election to the school committee in Cambridge, Massachusetts. She grew up in the Jefferson Park housing development in a single parent, first-generation American household and attended public school in Cambridge. She is the first Black woman who grew up in the Cambridge Housing Authority to serve on the Cambridge School Committee. Aisha's wealth of personal experience with the issues faced in her community informs her approach to leadership every day. In addition to her work on the school committee, Aisha currently works with 8th through 12th grade students through Cambridge Housing Authority's The Workforce Program, developing and implementing programs for youth focusing on life skills, job readiness, career awareness, and post-secondary opportunities. Also, Aisha finished up a meeting right before this to be able to jump on our call. So she is truly also working to get reelected. So thank you again so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you all so much for being here. I mean, what is an event if we had no participants, right? So thank you all for showing up, and for all of you all who have written in the chat that you all are planning to run, do it. I'm so excited for each and every one of you. This is such a big deal. So yes, I am here as a school committee member in Cambridge, and I have to think back to when I started to run. I had no idea that I ever wanted to run for office. It was when I was doing my work as a as an after-school teacher with the workforce program, I'm actually based in our city's public high school. We only have one high school in our city, and I actually am a kid from Cambridge, so I grew up in Cambridge and went through Cambridge Public Schools K-12, and so it's always good to give back to the city that kind of raised me. And so I work in the high school, and I was seeing all the injustices and all the inequities that were happening, especially for our Black and Brown students, seeing how much of them will hang out in the hallways versus being in the classroom. And so for me, it was like, why is that happening? What are you all missing? Like, what aren't you getting in the classroom space as to why you all hang out in the classroom? And a lot of it was just really, they never connected to their teachers. They never felt like their teachers saw them. And when I asked them to log into their Aspen account, I want to see grades, like, you know, how many of y'all might be failing or who's actually on point? Half of maybe seven to nine students that I had in my room that day were failing all of their classes. And so we had a really deep conversation about your grades, about what does it take to kind of get to the goals of where you want to be. Who in your life, do you have any adults who you have any relationships with, whether in the school building, in the community, at home? And when a lot of them said no, I knew that I needed to use my voice to make some change. And so that's what I decided to run. And I ran, and I have to tell you, it was the hardest thing because I'm not a person who enjoys talking to people, especially about me. Like, I don't mind talking about you, but talking about me is a whole nother deal, and I'm not too much a fan of that. And I also know that it takes money to run a campaign. And given the fact that I grew up in public housing, I didn't come from a network of wealth, right? I don't have homegirls and homeboys that I could hit up and be like, yo, swing me a grand or swing me whatever. They don't have it. So I'm trying to figure out, how am I going to be able to network, get money, and do what I need to do in order to campaign? And then there's another big kicker. The work that I do with the workforce program, that's part of Cambridge Housing Authority, means that I'm also a municipal employee. So that means that I actually cannot ask for money. So a huge next barrier, right? So when you're out there and people are like, hey, how do we, give you money? Can I write you a check on the spot? And I'm like, yeah, you can, but I can't take, like, you can, but mail it, right? Because I can't actually take that check. And that was big. And that was really, just thinking about, especially as a Black woman, how do you go into your community and talk about just those injustices and those barriers that you have, but also try to still raise funds. And so it's really about building a team. And so I had a wonderful team around me that helped and supported my run. My treasurer was wonderful. I had another gentleman on my team who was just hands down. He ran for political office straight out of high school, and he wanted to support me, and that was just great. And he did a lot of that support too, of fundraising. And I have to say, I mean, it's the most humbling experience of like going through the process and seeing people give what they have. I'm also an alum of the Emerge program. So anybody who has done Emerge or anyone who's thinking about doing Emerge, please, as women, please consider to do that. And I remember the day that we had to, one of the exercises was to make cold calls. And I had to partner up with someone, again, because I can't make a direct ask. And one of the people we called was my mother. And we called my mom, and my mother's on a fixed income. And, this was just an exercise. So I thought, and to the woman who was making the calls for me, she was like, it sounded like your mother was going through her purse, literally counting the dollars to see what she can send to you. And I think about this and it makes me emotional, because just knowing that my mother really doesn't have it, but knowing that she wanted to support me in any which way, shape, or form that she could, was just phenomenal. And that's what I say in terms of all the people who looked out for me and supported my campaign. It was struggling people, $25, $5, whatever you got, they shared it, right? Because they believed in me, they believed in my mission, and they believed in me being able to make a change in our community and not keep rocking with the status quo. Because that's what we're seeing. And in a place like Cambridge, where we are so well resourced, we're resource rich, but we are literally the tales of two cities, right? We have 60% of our kids are low income, living in the projects and all that stuff. And then we have individuals who are living in multi-million-dollar homes, right? And so when we think about that division and divide, and we know that we're nestled between Harvard and MIT and Lesley University, it's like that doesn't look the same for kids of color in this community. And so how do we, are you all hearing me?
Yeah, we can still hear you. You're frozen, but we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so thank you. So just thinking about all that, and I really am about to wrap up, is just thinking, how do you humble yourself? How do you build a team of people around you who believe in your mission and in what you value, and who will support you just based off of that? That's why I'm going hard. That's why I'm going hard for re-election. And, I'm trying to run different campaigns. I'm a social worker, so I run with, different groups and different people, and I utilize them to help me run and to help me plug around finances, because I know I can't do it alone. And that financial push is a law. The reason why municipal employees cannot ask for money is this is a law that happened back in, I don't know, the late 1800s, where you could not, because of the conflict of interest of if you were a political person, if you were running for office and you were also a municipal employee, it looks like you could be bargaining with individuals in the public. So that's really the small, it's a little bit longer than that, but that's really the short of why you can't ask for money, is due to that conflict of interest. So it's really about just building a team of people who will be out there and supporting you. And I also have to be grateful for the young people that helped and supported my campaign. A lot of young people who I work with, who were out there knocking doors, who were out there asking for money for me, just major stuff that was really impactful, and doing internships and all that stuff. And now I'm just building up a youth advisory committee to have young people advise me on, not for my campaign, but more so for just the politics of, like, I'm a school committee member, and if I'm not being advised by the young people who these policies that I will create will impact, again, going back to Aisha Drew, who said, Ayanna Presley, who is, in Cambridge, she's District 7, that's part of Cambridge, so she represents our district as well. Those closest to the power should be those closest to the pain should be closest to the power. And that is a big deal. If we're not embracing those who are closest to the pain, then we're not doing our job as best as we can. So I'll just leave it there and look forward to answering any questions you all have. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Aisha. And I have to say that I agree with both Aishas. That quote from the Congresswoman is one of my favorite quotes. I literally want to get it framed and hung up somewhere. So, because it really should be driving how you think about everything. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up everyone so we can go ahead and start answering some questions. I know, actually, Tyler, can you make sure that everybody's pulled up so folks can see folks' faces while they answer questions? We're gonna go ahead and kick it to the question and answers. We have a lot of questions and y'all can keep answering them. I've seen a few themes that I wanna go ahead and kick over. I can actually kind of kick this to the whole panel, but I'll kick this to the candidates first. We have a few people who are specifically talking about, hey, I'm thinking about running for office, but it's a lot of craziness going on right now. There's political violence. There is just a lot of stuff that, we talked about at the beginning of the call, that is difficult to run as a Black candidate, but we know that 2020 and 2021 have had some particular issues. So we have some folks talking about how can they kind of step up and run for office, but they're a little fearful of either political violence, backlash, people looking up really negative things in the past about them and kind of using that against them. So do any of our candidates want to go ahead and take that question?
I'll take it first. It's interesting. The Capitol riots happened on January 6th. I got sworn in January 1, and I'm a pretty, moving around type person. And so I typically don't move around with anybody. It's just me, and I'm driving around. I figure I'm young, I work out, I can probably deal with most issues. And then when all the stuff at the Capitol happened, I got about 10 calls the next day of people pretty much pleading with me to get a bodyguard, right? To position myself so that I'm never, as we say in Texas, caught lacking. I think that it is a very serious thing. It's something you need to take into consideration. Many local elected offices, especially if you're in an elected attorney position, you have the ability to have a body person on your payroll, which is somebody who, and they can be dual purpose, but they basically accompany you to all the stuff that you go in your official position. And to the extent you have to do anything political, you can pay them out of a separate account, your campaign account. But it's certainly something to consider. And look, your family members, the people that love you, the folks who have to share you with the world because you are somebody who is called to lead and they understand they have to share you. They're still your family members. They're still your friends. They still love you. They still want you to be safe. So it's something that you certainly have to consider after what happened on January 6th. I think it would be naive to assume that would never happen to you. And look, it just is statistically incorrect. It could very much happen. So what we do here locally is, one, I have kind of a body person, and then two, I'm just thoughtful about my movements. You learn lessons pretty early on in this game about having too many people that you trust. And so I'm just trying to be intentional about my movements and move in a way that doesn't put me or my family at risk.
I think I'll jump in next and just add, as a single Black woman and, walking the streets of Cambridge, and, sometimes people will think, well, Cambridge ain't, no threat. Your address is public, all that information is out there. And so I'm often very safe and very careful kind of where I walk, even if I'm just going for a walk around a park area and just thinking about that. I never thought about hiring someone like a body person or whatever. And that's something definitely to take into consideration. I think either given the role that you have or the position, and, if you feel as though you and your family, your loved ones are at risk, that's definitely the choice that you have to make. I, thank God, to this point, don't feel like I need to make that decision at this moment, but, it's real. It's real out there, and streets are crazy, and folks will take it, really could, if they can harm you, they will. Right. And sometimes we're making decisions that are impacting people's lives, and whether it's for the good or for the bad, or however people, you may not be a fan of everyone. And some individuals may just hate on you just because of that, or just because of the color of your skin. And so things are just really real, and you have to take into consideration everything you can to protect yourself and to be safe. So yeah, I appreciate you, Christian, for saying that, because I never really thought about that, but that is important.
So I will, for Aisha and Camden, we have some questions about getting started with fundraising. I know some of our candidates have talked about that, but I see one question about I'm just a regular person, what do I do? I don't have I saw someone ask about cold calling, and do we just get on the phone and just start calling random people? Can we talk to folks a little bit about what are the first things that you all start to do when you're supporting candidates who have never fundraised before, never run for office before? What are some ways that you can talk to them about getting started?
Yeah, I can go ahead and take that a little bit. I think it's really important to just look in your phone, right? Look in your telephone, make out a list. Who can you call immediately? Ask them, like Aisha said, for the $5, $10 to $15. A lot of campaigns, I know a guy out of California, he has not accepted any PAC money. He has not taken corporate money, but he has over $100,000 raised because of his community, right? So use your social media platform, try to develop yourself out in that way, but touch that personal network first, because those are the people that at least align a little bit with your values, and you kind of know that. Maybe it's your friends from college, it's your coworkers, it's people who have been along the journey with you, essentially. And so they naturally fit into your community. See if they can give, right? And if they can't, like I said, then go outside of that network and start to think about organizations and align yourself with your values. Take your core values and align with other organizations who share those values, and see if there's endorsement processes and if there's financial gain that you can get from that. but also there are unions, labor unions. I'm a union girl, born and raised. My dad is a construction worker, so I know that those are huge giving engines to people of color, specifically Black people. And then, like I said, you do have other options for self-funding. I mean, I don't want to say do this, but I know candidates that have literally taken loans out because they want it that bad. You know what I mean? There's really just so many different networks that help you bridge this gap. But I mean, it depends on the race too, because certain races are a little more costly than others. But that I think for some of you that are thinking about running, that's a really good start for you.
Can I add to it? Is that all right?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So what I did was I spent the 2 years before, and mind you, I didn't expect to run for office when I did, so it's not like it was rehearsed or anything, but I spent kind of the 2 years before really cataloging everybody I know. Somebody said earlier, oh, I'm just a regular old person. I promise you, every single person on this panel is just a regular old person. I'm an extra regular old person. But what you have to be intentional about is cataloging all your relationships. And so I had a spreadsheet that had names before I ever run, name, cell phone, and then how I know the person. And you'd be surprised. You go through your contact list, you go through your email list, you go through your Facebook friends. Every single one of y'all, you know some folks. You definitely know some folks. But you have to spend that prep time. The worst thing you could possibly do is to jump into calling people and you're just not being organized about it. You just kind of flip through your phone. Oh, I'm gonna call this person. No, map them all out, put it all down, and then start with the people who you absolutely know are gonna give you money, because that'll get you some confidence, get you some early wins. You'll have some rough patches, but I guarantee you, there's at least 100 people in your phone or on your Facebook who you wouldn't have thought would give you money, but after you talk to them, they will definitely give you money.
I just want to echo that. Like, and that's a major part of the exercise and of the work that you have to do. You do have to go through your contact list, and you do need to think about how, is this my homeboy or my homegirl who I grew up with? All right, I'm going to shoot them, I'm going to put maybe $50 for them, and maybe when you do that cold call, you might actually ask for 100, hoping that you just end, hoping that you get that 50 or that $25 or whatever it is. And if you know somebody from a corporate world or some kind of corporate relationship, maybe you ask for the $250 or you ask for the $100 or something like that. You really have to think about who your friends are, who your network is, and who could give you what. But it is important to make the ask across the board to everybody. And again, like that was another exercise that Emerge did, right? You make your list of all your people, and for me, I had to hand my list over to the next person to say, now make those calls, right? And I might be standing right there with them, and I might start the call like, hey, so-and-so, so great to talk to you. I'm running for office, and now I'm gonna pass you on over to my friend who's going to ask for money. and again, I mean, the biggest thing is to really think about the networks, the people who are around you. If you are a part of a union, I'm a Teamsters Local 122. And so it's, unions, if you're a part of an organization, like say, I'm also a social worker, so there's social work PACs. There's different PACs that you can ask for money as well, and those PACs might give you up to $500 or $250 or whatever the case is. But you have to do your homework, and you could think about different organizations that might be able to endorse you, and maybe through those endorsements, you might be able to get some money as well.
So I'll just jump in and expand on that, right? And that is that you just really need to think about your network. So fraternities, sororities, your mothers and fathers fraternities and sororities. You can also go to your high school folks. So, this is the deal. All politics are local. And I think that everyone on the call will agree, right? Like, it's not even about necessarily political party. So if you're running for president of the United States, maybe people are going to be entrenched. But if they went to high school with you, they still might give you money. If they went to college with you, they still might give you money. If they were in a club with you, they'll probably give you money. So really exhaust your networks. And I think it's Emerge, Emily's list, all of the different programs tell you to come up with your list of 100 to 200 people to call first. When you really start to make that list, you probably can come up with more based off of the people that are just in your phone. And of course, for some people, you're not going to have contact information. So that might mean that you're also working a Facebook page for all of your alumni. It might mean that you're using a number of different resources. So call time and definitely dedicating the time to call people is key. And if you cut call time, I think it's really pretty problematic. So you want to make that time, but then there are other avenues to reach people as you also exhaust all of your resources that you may have through the call time program. And I will say this, it is harder for Black women to raise money. Let's just go ahead and say that, right? Like when you look at the numbers, if I look at the governor in North Carolina, someone will give him $5,000. Then they will go down the list and give another white male who's running statewide $4,000. Then they might give the white female $3,500. And then they'll give the Black woman $500. Same donor with the capability to give. So the reality of it is that if you can, depending on the office that you're running for, you also want to be sure that you have dedicated staff who can help you till the soil and continue to come up with more resources, because it may take more time for you to reach the same level as your colleague, but you just need to be aware that it may take you more calls up front.
Awesome. Thank you so much for because definitely fundraising is a huge issue. So I'm going to start kind of just popcorning these questions around because I realized we have so much great stuff to do, but I wish we had all night to talk about all this. So another question that we've gotten from a few people in the chat and in the Q&A is how does a transition look when you're running for office? How do you continue your regular job and work on your campaign? Or do you completely focus on the campaign? So whoever wants to jump in on that question, go ahead.
I was a full-time practicing attorney while running for office and a new husband, which that was the hardest one of all of them, being the new husband. Two things. One, you absolutely have to make time for call time. If you're going to have to, take a longer lunch and try to get in some hours there or do it just at the top of the evening, don't allow your work schedule to completely prohibit you from doing call time. Two, my consultants would always push back on me on this. You have absolutely got to make time for yourself, for your husband, for your wife, for your partner, whoever it may be. There were times on the campaign trail where I would take a Friday night, it'd be 5 p.m. I'd say, I'm turning my phone off. I'm not responding to anything. I don't care if there's a fire in the office I'm running for. I will not be putting out a statement on it because I'm focused on my wife tonight. You have to have those moments where you just kind of escape into your space because this is a very taxing process and you're out in front of people a whole lot. And then, three, obviously, with my job, and I imagine most other people will feel similar, if you're running for a full-time position, you're planning for that to be your next career. You're leaving the place that you're at. So it's a balance, right? I was always big on, if I lose this race, I probably won't be at my current firm anymore, but I don't want my reputation to be demolished, right? Because of decisions I made in the process. So I never wanted to take advantage of my employer. That said, I was open and honest about what I was doing. And I let them know, hey, I'm going to be out around this period because I need to take care of some stuff. But in order of priority, call time, you got to be able to raise that money. So just make sure you set hours. I'm going to do 2 hours Monday, Wednesday, Friday of call time, and I'm not going to budge off that schedule.
So shifting a little bit, but also something to think about when you're getting ready to run. I think I've seen about 2 folks ask about vetting, hey, I'm going through my social media, I'm going through stuff, I had a life before I decided to run for office. What does that look like? I'd love for to hear Camden or Aisha jump in, because we know what we look for when we endorse candidates. I always remind people, I'm like, hey, we vet you too. So can we talk to folks a little bit about what that looks like, and if any of the candidates want to say what exactly they did?
Sure, I'll jump in. I think it's really important to obviously think of things that could be a challenge for you when you run for office. You can probably pay someone to do a background check on you. You can probably do a background check on yourself, honestly, just to see what's going to pop up. Obviously, there are things that you should probably know, but then you should get a sense of what could come up. And then I would say that, I'll use like Stacey Abrams, for example, in the sense that she talked about her college loan debt, right? So there are a lot of things that you can deal with, and you need to decide how to deal with it. And let's be realistic. The things that come up when you're running for school board are different than the things that come up when you're running for city council or county commission. And they're different than the things that come up when you're running for mayor. You can also look back at your local papers and see like what the publications do. So the Charlotte Observer usually does a pretty thorough background check on folks. However, when people have the ability to then hire research firms to go further into your background and your political record, that would come up more so at the federal level, or maybe for gubernatorial, then you're looking at something different, right? So whereas Stacey Abrams, for example, did not address her student loan debt when she actually became an elected official at the state legislature, she had to address it when she was running for governor. So I would say there are people who you want to bring into your circle of trust to say, is this a real issue? And how do I need to talk about it and address it? Because if the issue is that your house went into foreclosure, well, then perhaps you need to talk about the foreclosure crisis, right? So if it's going to come up, you need to figure out the best way to address it based on your issues, your commitment, and the reality of what all of us are actually dealing with.
Yeah, I'd like to echo some of those same sentiments. I think one of the simplest things you can do is, just draw 4 squares for yourself. And the first square is going to be me on me. What would I say about myself? What is out there that represents and reflects me as a candidate, right? And that's your personal, that's a range of things. The next square is going to be me on them. Them is your opponent. So however many you have, what would I say about them? What can I find about them, right? The next one is going to be them on me. What can they find about me? So you want to clean that up. If there's anything you have that is concerning, do a Google search for yourself. And if there's anything that is not becoming of you, you can file certain grievances and get that stuff taken down well in advance before somebody can find it on you, basically. And then you want to do them on them. What would they say about themselves? And how will I take them down with that same information? So definitely make sure that you are looking at all the facets of who you are and who they are. Good and bad for you, good and bad for them, and compare that up. But like I said, do a quick Google search. 6 and 7 and 8 pages deep, depending on how long your career span is. That's newspaper articles. That's a range of media content. Also, you can file with Twitter and see if Twitter can delete some of those tweets for you, those old tweets that may not be, your best self, putting yourself out there. You can do a range of things through social media to start to save yourself so people just can't find it and you're unexpected.
Thank you so much for that, because I'm just not gonna lie, that is important. It is important. You do not want to be a dynamic candidate pulling in money and somebody finds a PowerPoint presentation from 20 years ago. we definitely don't have those issues. So I'm going to go ahead and throw out 2 questions because I want to try to get through as many as we can. We're going to go a little bit to about 5 after the hour, but we're really going to try to wrap this up. You all have some great questions. So I'm going to give 2 questions, and then whoever wants to answer each one, that's fine. So we have a really good question about just how important image is as a candidate. We have someone who's asking about, the fact that they're a single parent, that they're also a naturalized citizen, and that folks do discriminate if they catch an accent, or if they feel like, if you were born American or speak a certain way or speak a certain language, that you have an advantage. But we definitely know that is, not something that should be holding back people from running. So love to give her some suggestions on like just how to like, overcome that when you're thinking, because because a lot of this is about, you're stepping out to run, but it's also about like, putting yourself out there. So any panelist who wants to speak on that. And then we had another question about the very real thing about, hey, I'm Black, I am running in a predominantly white community, or I'm running in a red community. I'm running somewhere where a Democrat hadn't run in a long time. Like, what are some things that I can be thinking about to really like, when I'm stepping up to run, to prepare, to best position myself to be successful?
My answer to both of those would be similar, and that is, please, please, please run as your authentic self. If you get the job, you're going to be elected, you're going to be responsible for serving a ton of people. If you're not operating in your own skin, standing on your own 10 toes, it is going to be a miserable experience. So run as your authentic self, and there are ways that you can kind of sharpen the things that you say or be intentional about certain acts. But I would say don't get so lost in that you lose being who you are. Whether it's a Latina, a trans woman, whatever it may be that person. And that when people vote for you, that's what they're going to be voting for.
Yeah, I totally agree. And try to just connect yourself with, so that you're not out there and feeling alone in this process, and just understanding like there are other, Democratic parties that will be out there and ready to support you. And to be completely honest, there are a lot of white people who are out there ready to give money to a Black candidate. Okay. And so just put yourself out there. Like Christian said, run, don't let that hinder you. You run and you figure out, again, what organizations are out there that can support candidates, because that might be a little limited, but there are those organizations in your neighborhood who would love to just support you. It just takes you getting out there and actually doing it. And like they say for women, sometimes women have to be asked 7, 10, 15 times to run for office. Whereas a man, it's like, yo, you gonna run, brother? And he like, yeah, But for women, we have to be asked a dozen times before we actually do it. No, let me tell y'all right now, do it, okay? And just go out there. And at the end of the day, I like to be like, what is the worst that can happen? You put yourself out there, you went hard for the things that you value, and you went hard for your community to try to make change. People are gonna see that, they're gonna see you. And even if you don't win the first time, you try again and you go for it right again. Because that's really the important piece of running for office, is that people get to now know you, they see your name, they see your value. And then when they see that you come back stronger the next time, they're like, oh, this person ain't playing. Okay, we need to start listening and paying attention to the things that you value in the community, because other people do value it as well.
And I'll just add really quickly that you want to be sure that you have a strategy where you can talk to people. So you can convince people of anything if you tell them who you are and why they should trust you, right? So they can agree to your agenda if you actually have an opportunity to connect. And this election cycle, we had more Black women, more Black candidates, more progressive candidates raise more money. So definitely raise the money, but don't sacrifice the person-to-person contact and the strategy.
And the issues that, we're fighting for as Black people, they're not Black issues, right? These are just community issues and very human issues. So the fact that you're a Black woman running, you're running because we're disproportionately affected, because we need representation. You're running because you're the best candidate for the job. But also you're talking to your future constituency, you're talking to your community. You know what I mean? You're not going to forget them, but you're centering yourself in that conversation. Get in front of that and just accept it, right? Do not look at anything that you have. I don't care if it's a lisp. I don't care if it's a disability. I don't care what it is. Do not look at that as some sort of disadvantage. That is something that allows you to connect to people that have never seen themselves in the electorate before, right? So think about how you are changing the landscape and just allow yourself to move in that power, because it is power.
So thank you all. So I'm gonna just like have one more question. We'll keep it quick. I'd love everyone to popcorn around, close it out, and then and thank you so much for staying a little bit over. So someone asked, is running for office the beginning of like a bigger political movement? Can you look at running for office as like the beginning of a movement? If anybody wants to give any thoughts on that question, go ahead, and then we can just popcorn around to close it out.
I would love to touch this because this is just, I could rant about this for hours. Mm-hmm. What we are doing and what, you know, and getting people elected, we're changing the quality of life for generations of Black folks to come, right? When we get into these seats, we are the power players, the decision makers. We are changing the narrative. And that is so important. It is just truly so important. And prior to, you know, being with the collective, I served Minority Leader Amelia Sykes in Ohio. She never thought she was gonna run, right? But I needed to see her. I needed to work for her, for my passions to spark and, you know, my life to take off. And once I left that office, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. That job was just to teach me what I wanted to do in politics. But I was so clear after watching a Black woman lead. I was so clear. So this is so important. And I just do not want people to miss this moment, because this is the moment where people, and I'm going to be very candid, a lot of people feel really guilty. So they're giving more money like never before. You know, they're staffing like never before. This is such a really important moment. And I just want people to milk it for what it is worth, because that is going to set a precedent like we have never seen. And we're seeing it now, right? We see Kamala, but look at what she went through. So I just want to, you know, say that piece. We have the power to change the quality of life for generations to come with what we are doing right now.
I just have snaps. I don't have additional thing to add. I just got snaps today.
I'll just add that, you know, I think the Camden is spot on. Leader Sykes is one of my favorite people. I'm ready for her to move on to whatever she's going to do next. And so there are a few things. I'll just go back to what I said before and echo. As a teacher, as an arts administrator, as a leader in the education space, I realized that I can make an impact, but I couldn't make the full impact to make sure that people could even get to the services I was providing, right? And so the reality of it is that from an elected leadership perspective, you can definitely make a broader impact than you can make in some of the work that you're doing. I personally love to see candidates who care, who are compassionate, who really want to invest in their community. I'm not interested in the people who want to run specifically just because they want a title. I want people who are going to help the community, and those are the people who I want to help, right? So I think that you can make an impact from that perspective, and then you can make an impact from inside of the house and outside of the house. So you need to make sure that all of the activist work continues. And I will say this, you want to be sure that you support candidates who you elect to these spaces to do the work so that they do not go into the space without you, right? If you're not ready to run, if you're not there yet, whatever that looks like, support the candidates who are there to do the change agent work, because they need for you to show up while they're elected and while they're doing the work just as much as they do during their campaign. So I think the work takes place in all the levels. And I will also say that, you know, I feel like there was a ceiling for us before. And to Camden's point, now we can be vice president, we can be president, we can be all of the things. And so let's not limit ourselves to whatever the first office is that we run for, but continue to grow.
Well, Aisha, did you want to say anything before we close it out? Other Aisha, sorry.
No, thank you. I just, you know, I think it's just really important to know that that you need to run, that you need to run for office, and that people need to see you out there, and that they need to see you fighting for a cause. And if you don't feel confident in your ability, like you're not a great public speaker, you're not, you're shy or this or that, you get that practice. You practice with people, and you can have your little pitch, your when you're doing the cold calls, all that stuff, and you practice with your friends, you practice with your, with your family, and that's when how you get better. Practice makes perfect. And in terms of doing this work, you got to continue to practice. You go to that first door when, it's COVID now, so you might just be making more phone calls, but when you're on the call or when you're at the door, that first door might close right in your face, and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And it's like, you know what? Go right to the next door and try again, right? Because at the end of the day, these folks will hear you, they will see you, but you have to be presentable. You have to really know your craft and know what worth you're bringing to the table, because people will believe in you once you're really believing in yourself. And that's really, I think, the key to this work. I can't tell you how many people I've seen who, they can't convince me, they can't convince anybody, but they still run because they're running on some bit of confidence that they have. And somebody's going to tell them later, like, I need you to come with your pitch a little stronger. I need you to have more confidence in how you approach this, how you approach the situation. And that's usually just the feedback that you need. So I just gave it to you. There goes your feedback. So take that and run with it. And I'm so just blessed to be in this space with all the folks that are on the panel and having all you all as the audience, and all the questions have been phenomenal. So please stay in touch.
Well, thank you all so much. Like I said, I wish we could stay on here for hours. I know I've already kept our panelists a little over time, so I really appreciate y'all's time tonight and all the wisdom and experience that you've brought. I would like everyone on the call. We had over 100 people on this call tonight, so that was absolutely amazing. This is not the end. This is not the last that you will hear from us. You will get an email tomorrow. You'll get links to all of our organizations, so you can learn more about like what we do and how to get endorsed by us when you step up to run. On Run for Something's front, we're going to have some calls coming up next month. I'll be doing a call specifically for Black women running for office. We're going to have another call specifically for men of color, so y'all can have y'all's space and we can have ours to really get into the nitty gritty and talk about some hard training and skills and stuff that, a lot of people talked about fundraising on the call, but it is absolutely important. So we'll talk about that and more. So for everyone who still has questions, we'll definitely follow up with you tomorrow. There'll be an opportunity for you to be able to ask those to us. And thank you all so much for hanging on the call for this long and for all the stuff. I think I saw a Facebook group started in the chat. This was just amazing. I guess I'll end it with this. If you're waiting for somebody to ask you to run for office, consider you sitting on this call the first time that you have been officially asked to run for office. So, like Aisha said, don't necessarily wait to be asked. If you know you're here to make change in your community, you have a strong story of self, like Aisha do mention, you have conviction, the work ethic, just like you've seen in Christian, and Camden has talked about the movement. Like all of those things, run. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight, and we will be in touch soon.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.